Welcome to OLC 4.0, Term 1B, Class 8, Unit 1. We are on assignment 11 and number 12 today. This is Monday, November 27th. Here is the contact information. The most important thing is if you're handing in work, send it to student.work@nnec.on.ca. This way the secretary can log that you submitted the work. Please make sure your full name, course name, assignment number, and name is on it. If the assignment asks for a rough and a good copy, please label which is which and include them both in the same email. Over here in the blue is all the different information for how to connect to us. If you want to talk to me about an assignment, you can call the office, 1-800-667-3703. My extension is 2211. The email is jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. And if you want to listen to a recording again, it is at capital G, capital P, ERCY space, capital W, AHSA. Occasionally there are assignments where you need to take a photograph of it, or if you're handwriting and want to take a photograph of it, please send it as an attachment if you do that. Don't just put it directly in the email. It's kind of hard for us to print off and it doesn't show properly on the one computer, okay? So send it as an attachment and then we're all good. Okay, today's work. We are going to understand prepositions and be able to recognize the jobs they do in a sentence, understand the format of a news article, answer questions about a news article, use the news article format to demonstrate your understanding of Chapter 1 and how to write a news article, identify the important elements of a news article and include them in your writing. So as you can see, we are going to be big on news articles. That's really going to be a big part of our stuff all week, actually. So to start off with grammar, prepositions. Preposition is a word or several words that connect a noun or a pronoun to the rest of the sentence. And the preposition will show what type of relationship that word has to the rest of the sentence. It might show direction, time, place, location, spatial relationships, agency, measurement, or other types of relationships. It will come at the beginning of what is sometimes called a prepositional phrase. Occasionally, prepositional phrases will also be adverb phrases that describe or modify the verb in some way. So basically the same phrase is kind of doing two jobs at once or can be described in two different ways. Okay, so here are the different types of relationships you generally see with prepositions. Time, obviously it shows time or when something happens. That could be general time like at 2 o'clock, or it can be more very specific time like at 2 o'clock, or it could be general time like in the winter time or during the decades of the 1970 kind of thing. Place and location, it can show where someone or something is located. Some people kind of group these together. Some people have very definite ideas that they should be separate. They're so similar that I put them together. Direction, that shows the direction or movement of a person or thing. Generally, you use this with verbs that show motion, like jump up or drive north or that kind of thing. Agent indicates who is the agent or who did the action. Instrument will show the instrument or tool used to do something. Manner will indicate the way or how something's being done. Purpose will show the reason or the purpose of something. And possession shows ownership or possession of something. Source or origin will show where something came from or the source of it. All right. So possessive prepositions show ownership or belonging. So I could say the car was given to her, or this gift is for Dad. We could also have things like the house was built by my grandfather, or the textbooks belong to the school. I am a leader in the group. I have a membership with the club, or she made it on the cheerleading team. Now, it's difficult for me to say, okay, here's the only prepositions that show that, because you can see here, certainly different kinds of prepositions can still show the concept of ownership or belonging. Okay, but you can see about the relationship thing. I can't just say the car was given her. I have to say it was given to her. This gift is dad? No, the gift is for dad. So it's showing that relationship of ownership or that it belongs, right? Like the group is, this leader doesn't own the group, but they belong in the group, right? You have a membership with the club. You don't own it necessarily. Okay, so first of all, prepositions of time. And you can see there are a lot of different prepositions. It's actually one or two they haven't shown here. So example, during. You usually, when something is happening while something else is happening. So we stayed at a student hostel during the conference. For is used with a period of time, not just one time, but like, I'm just going to bed for 2 hours or so, or school is going to be for the morning only today. Until or till is indicating up to a certain time. Like we'll wait until 6:30 for you. Till is kind of the short form of until. Until is the full word. Since it's referring back to a point in time when something began. So like 40 years have passed away since they met, or this building has been here since the turn of the century. From and to is showing you when something begins or ends. Like her visit will extend from Monday to Thursday. And it could be a much bigger frame, like fall is from September to December. Ago is talking about something in the past and how far back it happened. He left the house over an hour ago. Or it could be something like, those fashions were done a long time ago. Before refers to a point in time previous to a specific point in time. That sounds kind of vague, but like she's always up before dawn. He got his work finished before bed. So it's connecting two different points of time in a sense. By is not later than. So he'd promised to be back by 5 o'clock, like not later than 5 o'clock. You need to be in by 10 o'clock for curfew. It's giving you like a hard deadline. After, used when we want to say something later in time then. I feel fairly relaxed after taking the medication. I felt better after my dad came. 2 is telling the time when referring to the number of minutes before an hour. Like it's 1:45. It's not quite 2 o'clock, it's getting there. Past is the opposite. It's after the time, right? It's 10:05. Between and are another one where it separates a time between 2 points. They lived in New York between 1998 and 2004. Within refers to a span of time during which something may occur. You should receive a reply within 7 days. Okay, I'm going to flip over here for a second and just take a quick look at this. Oh, hang on. Is this time? Place? Is this supposed to be time?
Starting with a blank page can be overwhelming.
Sorry. Hang on. I've been trying to download these. I think, you know what? Oh, it says prepositions of time. That's weird.
SL Library. Prepositions of time. What are prepositions? Prepositions are words that show things like time, place, and direction. Let's learn about prepositions of time. Prepositions of time show when something happens. Common prepositions of time are at, on, and in. For example, I eat breakfast at 7 a.m. The party is on September 8th. Flowers grow in the spring. We use the preposition at with clock times. We eat dinner at 6:30 p.m. He goes to school at 8:45 a.m. We also use at for other times. I watch TV at night. They eat in the cafeteria at lunchtime. We use the preposition on with days of the week. She has a job interview on Monday. We always play baseball on Fridays. We also use on for dates. The students have a test on October 2nd. My birthday is on April 19th. We use the preposition in with the time of day. She drinks coffee in the morning. They go to the gym in the afternoon. We also use in for months and years. My mother plants vegetables in May. I graduated in 2019. We use in for seasons too. We go to the beach in the summer. They go snowboarding in the winter. Look at the picture and say or write a sentence using a preposition of time. For example, we will take a trip in 2022. Now you try.
So when does she study? At night, right? Okay, so would I use at, in, or on there? On because it's a date, right? This kind of stuff is really idiomatic. And on, at, or in. At because it's a time frame. Okay, I'm going to pause that for a second. So when I say idiomatic, what I mean is that it's kind of unique in that it doesn't always translate 100%. It's more that you have to kind of know that's the one that goes with that type of phrase. And sometimes that's sort of tricky for people. If you forget, it can be, there's no necessarily like logical reason. And so that kind of thing is called idiomatic. You have to just kind of memorize it basically. Okay. Prepositions of time. In, oh, you know what? This is another one of those things where we went through a previous time and we fixed it. And then I forgot to unfix it. All right, hang on. I'm gonna do it this way. And we'll just, I think, highlight this time. Something winter, the snow will be deep. In winter, on winter, or since winter. It's going to be in winter because it's happening during that time. I can understand if people were tempted to use since winter. It doesn't quite make sense because since kind of implies a little, I don't know, to me it implies a little bit of like reasoning and stuff, which doesn't quite work here. I always go camping to the summer, at the summer, or during the summer. It's going to have to be during. Okay. passage of time. He likes to work out since he goes to work, at he goes to work, or before he goes to work. It's going to have to be before. Since doesn't make sense there. Again, it's that thing where it implies a reason. He's not working out because he goes to work. He's just working out before he goes to work. It is 10 minutes from 3, ago 3, or to 3. Now, this one you could say the word from, but it's not 100% correct. To is more typical, I guess would be the best way to put it. School starts since 9, during 9, or at 9. Definitely at. That's a specific time frame, and at is when it starts. You will get your check in the mail blank 10 business days. Ago 10 business days, before 10 business days, within. They're giving you a time frame, which should happen within 10 business days. It's only been 3 weeks since I started chemo, before I started chemo 4. Now here, since makes sense here. Hard to explain why, but it does. I am going to grab a nap during half an hour, for half an hour, until half an hour. I think you could easily use for or until. For seems slightly more accurate. And as you can see, I'm talking about this. There isn't always just one right answer. Sometimes there's one that's the better answer, but 2 might work. Okay, so that was covering prepositions of time. Now we're looking at prepositions of location. I apologize, that's just an old one. In these kind of sentences, the preposition is usually followed by the article the and the noun. And there's an assumption that both the speaker and the listener understand what object is being referred to. Remember that the is a definite article, so it's pointing to a specific item, not a chair, which would be like any chair, but the chair, like that specific one. And because it's using the specific article, it generally means that both people know, okay, he means the chair in the kitchen, not any chair I can find, okay? So these prepositions of location are words like in, on, at, and you can see we just use those for time, but they also work for location. By, near, nearby, above, below, over, under, up, down, around, through, inside, outside of, between, beside, beyond, in front of, in back of, behind, next to, on top of, within, beneath, underneath, among, along, and against. For example, the keys are on the table, and both people know which table. I mean the kitchen table, not the computer table. It's the kind of thing that you would be saying to somebody who lives in your house, right? The bread is behind the milk. The rake is against the shed. The garden hose is around back of the house. The ketchup should be between the mustard and the mayo. It's the kind of thing where when somebody says, where is, and you're giving them very specific directions on the location of where to find it. Okay, hang on, I'm just gonna see how much I have. Yeah, I think we should be okay. This one there's a few things where, again, more than one could be a correct answer, okay? So always in this case, you just choose one that you think is best. You don't have to get too caught up in like, is it the only correct answer? If it makes sense, that's fine. My favorite room in the house is the kitchen. The oven is something, 2 cabinets. So the oven, 2 cabinets is here. You could say between 2 cabinets, but I think I would say underneath if they have it. Below will work. Just can I move it? Yep, okay. Below 2 cabinets. Blank the left cabinet, there is a blender. So here's the blender, and they're describing the relationship. Nope, here's the blender. Sorry, thought it was a pot. Something the left cabinet, there is a blender. Above or on top of? On. Yeah, on. Okay. Something the blender. Oops, sorry, I kind of move it up a bit. Something the blender, there is an open cabinet. Next to, no, above. Above. Above or on top of? Yep, above, I would say. Okay, that works. Above the blender, there's an open cabinet. Oh, I gotta keep on moving it up a bit. Something in this cabinet, there is a microwave. In or inside in the cabinet, there is a microwave. Let's say in. On the right side of the cabinet with the microwave, there are 3 other cabinets, the second of which has jars. Jars inside. Yeah, you couldn't just say it has jars in. You could say it has jars in it, but because, yeah, I'm not sure. I was trying to think. I was going to say, because prepositions are kind of a connecting word from in to it, inside kind of, it's kind of like scooped up the word side and put it into the preposition. So it's kind of a multi-purpose preposition there. Blank the last cabinet, there is another cabinet with the sink. Below the last cabinet? Is there another one? Below, behind, I would say it's below again. Yeah, or underneath, do we have that? All right, I'm gonna use below again. They would both work. With the sink, inside of it, in front of it, inside, gets used twice. The last cabinet, sorry, blank the last cabinet, there is the fridge and something. Next to, near, beside the last cabinet, there is the fridge, and blank the fridge, there is a window. And you could say beside the fridge as well, or near the fridge. That would work. Something the window, there is a table in front of. So sometimes there's only one that works. Other times there's multiple ones that would be similar, right? There are 2 chairs, blank the table, next to, between. I would have said next to, although I don't see it there. From the window, I can see the trees that are outside. Oh, you know what? I just noticed. I was thinking about these chairs, but there are 2 other chairs behind the table, so that would work too. Okay, so a little bit tricky, but after a while you get kind of used to it. Prepositions of measurement. This is kind of funny because I'd never really heard about this before. Because sometimes we just use very specific numbers, but I realized when I saw this, yeah, you're right. We do often use a preposition to introduce even those numbers. Like, I want a pound of butter. You were the winner by a few seconds. Get 2 burgers for $10. Newborns often weigh between 6 to 10 pounds. I want to buy a meter of green cotton. Remember that measurement is just not how long something is. You can measure things like time, money, weight, mass, temperature. I tried to show those examples here. You can also be very exact, like run to the 1 mile mark, or you can be estimating or approximate, like we need about 5 pounds of potatoes. I'm going to do one more. I don't want to run out of time is the problem. Prepositions of agency, there's only 2 of them, by or with. They're often used in a passive voice, like the house was built by a famous architect. He dug the hole with a backhoe. And then you've got prepositions of origin, like where something comes from. The pot is made of copper, or he is from Norway. Not just people, like things could be from a place, like trying to think of special food. This sauerkraut is from Germany. Okay. It's just explaining the country from which you were born in, or an item came from. Okay. And then instrument prepositions indicate what tool or instrument did the job. He hit the nail with the hammer. He wrote his novel on the computer. The car runs on electricity. She traveled via the subway. The wood is held together by screws. The sound waves are carried through the wires. He finished the painting with a palette knife. So you can see prepositions really add a lot of information about whatever noun or pronoun is happening there. Oh, this one is one where we kind of practice using prepositions of agency, origin, instrument, or measurement. The book was written blank Nora Roberts, for, by, or because of. Okay, so by is the typical one we would do there. He fixed the door with, by, or for duct tape. With duct tape. Now, if you ask me to explain why I know it's with rather than by, I don't have a good reason. Again, this is where the idiomatic thing comes. I just know that to me, mentally, it sounds right, but I can't give you a logical reason for it. He is originally blank the Ukraine. Well, Ukraine is a country, so we would use from. He's from Ukraine. All the animation was completed, blank computer. To computer, by computer, as computer, definitely by. The solo in the song was done from flute to flute with flute, definitely with flute. The cars were shipped by Germany, from Germany, or for Germany. Technically, by would work, except rationally, the country wouldn't be sending it. I mean, they could if it was like ammunition or something. The ammunition was shipped from, like, by Germany, but from makes more sense most of the time. The temperature dipped blank 0 degrees, from 0 degrees to 0 degrees. If I was going to say from, I could say the temperature dipped from 0 degrees to -30, but it'd be odd to just say it dipped from 0 degrees. It's not impossible. It's just an odd sentence. There'd be no reason to tell anybody that, I don't think. Please get 2 pounds blank steak, with steak, of steak, for steak. This is definitely of. And then we have, my doctor's appointment was blank 2:30. Well, specific times we usually use the word at. Okay, I'm going to skip the little video. This is about a news article. We're going to be talking about that. I really like how this guy explains things, so we're going to kind of use this today. Just kind of go over this. Hang on a second.
News article. What characterizes a news article? A news article is fresh. It deals with an event that has recently occurred. The journalist starts with the important or sensational news first, and then adds elements of decreasing importance. The journalist refers to what others say, but does not share his own opinion. It describes the events using photos and objective descriptions. Passengers despair over lack of information. Heavy snow hits Gatwick, shutting down airport completely. Passengers stranded. All departures and arrivals were cancelled at 10 a.m. after ground staff lost the battle to clear the settling snow from the runway. The decision to close the airport came as forecasts showed another 6 inches, 15 centimetres of snow, and temperatures well below freezing in major parts of Britain today and tomorrow. The cold snap is likely to last until Sunday. A spokeswoman for Gatwick says, "We are asking passengers with flights that were due to leave today not to come to the airport. The terminal building is already full of travellers who, at the moment, have nowhere to go." Chris Barronley, waiting with his family for a flight to the Canaries, said that he had spent the night listening to one delay after the other. Information here is horrible. The children have been crying. We're hungry and cold. We came down from York yesterday and have nowhere to go now. This vacation is a nightmare. Thousands of holidaymakers saw their travel plans dashed as Gatwick Airport succumbed to the freezing conditions early on Wednesday morning. We brought in extra people to try to clear the runway. The faster they cleared the snow, the quicker it settled again. We are doing all we can, says Gatwick spokesman. People are advised to seek updated information and not go to the airport until it is opened again. The Gatwick spokesman also urges travellers to seek information from their travel agents for travel options and information.
Okay. So I really liked how they explained that. I thought they did a lovely job with it. Oh, wait, hang on a second. Sorry. And so I wanted to see that. Okay. So news articles have their own format. Sometimes people don't realize that different types of writing have their own formats, which is basically just like their own set of rules or customary ways of presenting their information. Personal narratives, for example, are often presented in a chronological format. This means that events are told about in the same order as they occurred. Informational articles like science books or history books might be presented in chunks of information with like a main idea that's then explained through the use of additional supporting details or examples. But news articles are generally written in order of importance. This means that events may be written about out of the sequence they actually happened in order to make sure that the most important events are discussed first. And I don't know if we've talked about that in this I don't think we have in this course yet. But one of the big things with newspaper articles is often the editor may be cutting a story short at the last minute to fit another story in. So what they always do is they cut from the bottom up. So that's why you put the least important information at the bottom, because that way the editor knows, well, I need another inch of space. I'm going to cut these couple of sentences to make room. And that way they can always ensure that the main point of the story still gets across. So the writer doesn't always have control over how long the story is. They may write a story that's a certain length and the editor may cut it down by 3/4 or a half, like who knows. So that's why news articles have their own format, because of the way that writing gets edited or cut short. Okay, so assignment number 11 is the news report. This part is where we're going to answer questions about a news article, but we're going to understand it first, the whole format, before we answer anything. So regardless of what you decide to use for your portfolio in lesson 20, which is not today, it's way down the road, binder or digital folder, one of the items you're going to be asked to produce or to resubmit is a news story or a news report. Most news stories or reports follow the same basic structure, which is the inverted pyramid that you can see here in yellow. You already use this structure all the time, but you probably didn't even know that it had a name. For example, when you call or text a friend to tell him or her about something going on, you usually begin by giving the most interesting and important details first. The least important details or information usually comes at the end of the conversation, and sometimes you do not get to that until a follow-up conversation. So that is the inverted pyramid. Important details first. I'm going to see if I can just make this a little tiny bit bigger. Oh, that's the opposite of what I was looking for. There we go. Inverted pyramid. Up top, you have the information you have to communicate in order to understand the story. This is additional information. It's helpful, but it's not crucial. And then there's a few details. It'd be nice if they had it, but it's not the end of the world if they don't get it. Because of this format, people can stop reading at any time. It's really common for people who are reading through a whole newspaper to just read the first paragraph and see if they're interested in the story, if they want to know any more. And if they don't, they just quit reading. They've still understood like a little sound bite of information about that. Let me go back to 15. There we go. Okay, so this part up here in the dark yellow is called the lead. And the lead is the first paragraph, which is the first opening 1 or 2 sentences. It usually summarizes the facts of the news report in order of most newsworthy to least newsworthy. And the reader should know just by glancing at that lead what the report is about and what the emphasis is. And the lead usually contains answers to the 5 W's and the H, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I just want you to know this is a major format for the course. The news report goes on for at least the next 3 assignments, I believe. And we come back to it later on again in the course. So understanding the news that you read is a really major element in being a responsible citizen, being able to vote. It's also considered a really important element in mastering literacy skills. because it's a life skill, like everybody should be able to read the newspaper and understand more about new laws or wars being announced or information about an event or whatever. So that's why we're going over how the format is a little bit different than what we're used to reading. Okay. We're not only going to read news articles, but later on, we're going to write news articles. So we really want to make sure we understand the format because it's a little bit different and it's really crucial to being successful on these assignments. So the lead in a newspaper article is going to contain answers to the 5 W's. Who? It's going to tell you who is the main topic of the story, not who wrote it, but who the story is about. But now the who can refer to a person, or it could be a group or a building or an institution or a concept or a contest, anything about the story. What is the action taking place? What's actually happening? When tells the time when the action is happening. It can often be like an adverb or an adverb phrase. Where is it happening? Why is this occurring? What's the reason for it? And then how. It's usually describing the manner or the method by which you're doing something. So the following is an example of a news report that will give you an idea about how you should write your own news report in this course. So we're going to read it and then we're going to answer some questions about it. And the headline is up here. It says, Powwow Idol includes Nova Scotia and Ontario finalists. August 4th, 2019, 2 Canadian contenders are among the finalists in Powwow Idol, an online competition to find the best unsigned First Nations drum group in North America. The competition is in its 9th round, and a tribe called Micmac of Millbrook, Nova Scotia, and the Chippewa Travelers of South Central Ontario are still in the running. They are competing against a group from Maine, the sole American-based survivor of 12 drum groups, which entered the competition in January. So I want to point out, understanding vocabulary can be a really important part of understanding a news article. First of all, what's a contender? Well, Webster defines a contender as someone who competes for a championship. I've had a few people use this as the answer to the who, but contender is really more like a description in a sense. It's not the name of a person, and it really shouldn't be used as the answer to who in the questions that follow this article. Okay, so it's more like the people that are trying to win, essentially. So what do they mean by an unsigned First Nations drum group? Who would be signing them? Generally, they're talking then about somebody who doesn't have a record contract, essentially, right? Once you have a contract, you've signed that contract and you work with a record company. If you're unsigned, you're kind of new, you're still considered in some ways an amateur, even if you're maybe making money. So they're looking for the best unsigned. They're not competing about people that have already won awards and that everybody knows and hears on the radio, right? This is people that are newer. Okay. The competition combines the digital with the traditional. All the groups have competed with victory or veteran songs, fancy shawl or fancy feature songs, two-step songs, and a round dance. All the performances are online as audio files, and judging is also over the internet. A tribe called Micmac has been playing together for just over a year and decided to take a chance when it entered Powwow Idol. Michael Stevens, 27, the group's drumkeeper, said he doesn't know why they've done so well in the competition. Everyone has their own unique sound and their own unique way of singing, Stevens told CBC News. Each drum is special in its own way, I guess. So we are very fortunate and blessed we have made it this far. Their Facebook page is flooded with good wishes from supporters in their Nova Scotia community. They are passing on their experience to even younger musicians on the Millbrook First Nation, among them Justin Stewart Muse, 10, who was at a recent practice session. It's awesome, it's smart, it inspires me to think good thoughts, he said, as the group pounded a traditional drum with one hand and squeezed their throats with the other to help them hit the high notes. Chippewa Travelers are a Northern-style drum group which started singing together in 1998. The more than 15 members came from Rama Sarnia, Alderville, and other Southern Ontario communities. They'll find out late Sunday or early Monday if they move on to the final round of the competition. A winner will be announced in early June. All right, so first of all, why is Google underlining some of these words in red? Are they really spelled wrong? No, not necessarily. Google sometimes just doesn't recognize unusual names of people or places, so it always defaults to that must be a spelling mistake. Don't feel like you have to change it just because Google says so. So maybe powwow, for example, is typically 2 words, but here it's the name of a contest and they chose to put it together. So therefore it's perfectly legitimate for us to repeat that. But Google doesn't know that. It can't read the article itself. So it's saying that it's wrong, but it's not necessarily wrong. I want to make that clear because that'll happen in your own work too. If you use somebody's name sometimes, that it's not seen before, it'll be like, oh, this is wrong, and it's not necessarily. So you can see right here at the bottom, there are 2 questions. The tricky part is on the next page, there's one more question. And I have a lot of people hand me in these 2, but this is only worth 3 marks. The next part is worth 12 marks. So you got to make sure that you notice and answer the questions on the next page, okay? You do not need to put your answers on this piece of paper. They didn't really leave you enough room. You need to be able to respond in complete sentences. So I just advise you to get some lined paper and answer questions on the lined paper. Let me see here. Where are we at? Okay. I'm going to come back to that in a second. The last question for number 11 is at the top of page 41. It's worth the most marks, worth 12 marks. It's important to answer these questions here in a complete sentence rather than just one word. So the question actually says, the most important questions a good news report answers for the reader are the 5 W's and the H. Using the report, complete the following: who, what, when, where, why, or how. If somebody asked you, who is your teacher, you wouldn't just write Jillian. You could say it that way, but you wouldn't write it that way. You would need to write Jillian is my teacher. Just in writing, it's not appropriate really to give one word answers unless you're doing dialogue or something. So sometimes people find these one word questions a little bit confusing. So I kind of expanded them so you could see how they might sound if you applied them to each story. Who is this story about? What is or what has happened? When is it happening? Or did it already happen in the past? Where is it happening? Why is it happening? And how is it happening? Oh, we're not there yet. Hang on a second. Okay. So a while back, we went over the acronym RAPROC, which was kind of a lengthy way to extend your answers when you were unsure of what to say. So I want to talk about kind of a simplified version for shorter answers, which will still help you create complete sentences with thorough explanations. So RAP just stands for restate, answer, and prove. Prove just means you give evidence from the text if it's about the text. If it was about your own life, you would give some examples, okay? So let me show you what I mean. So let's say a question asks you, what is your favorite color? Well, you would restate, my favorite color is, and then I would answer, purple. And then I would prove it or explain it because it makes me think of magical things like unicorns and witches, okay? So that is what we would consider an appropriate level answer. And I say this because if you're looking at things like what is the purpose of this news report, occasionally I've had people just kind of circle something and consider that good, but it really isn't acceptable. You would need to use RAP. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make it a little bit white just to kind of cover things up there. Okay, so restate, what is the purpose of this news report? The purpose of this news report is, so what is it? Is it to persuade, to inform, or to entertain? You'll have to decide for yourself. think about news reports and what the usual purpose of a news report is. And then it says explain your answer. That usually means you're going to write the word because, and then give me your reason. Why do you think, if you chose persuade, why do you think it's trying to persuade people? If you chose inform, why do you think? What about the article makes you think they're trying to inform you? If it's you chose entertainment, why? What do you think about the article is showing you that it's about entertaining? So you have to tell me which one you choose and then tell me why you chose that. And then who do you think the intended audience is for this news report? So in that case, you're just thinking about like, who would want to read it? Who would want to read articles or about powwow competitions, a drumming competition, right? And there is more than one way to answer this, right? I'm not looking for only one answer. If you give me an answer that I consider reasonable, like, yeah, that person would be interested, that group of people would be interested, then that's perfectly valid and I will take it. Okay. So sometimes people get stressed out because they want there to be only one answer. But as long as you can explain your answer, I am good. I will be happy to take that. Okay, so we did that. Okay, I don't want to move on to the next question so soon, but maybe we'll just kind of look ahead for a minute, okay? Tomorrow, I was hoping to get this today, but we're kind of running a little bit short on time. Tomorrow, we're going to look at assignment 12. So assignment 12 is we're creating our own news report. And they've given us another example here of the news report, which we'll read. And they point out some of the key parts of it. And then for some reason, here is where they talk about the writing process. And I have no idea why they've left it so late, because right from the beginning, the assignments have asked you to do a rough copy. So that's why I've been kind of talking a lot about brainstorming and drafting and revising, is because right away we're marking you on it. So it bothers me that they left it so late, which is why I introduced it earlier, okay? But this is the first official introduction to the writing process. And again, this is going to come up again a little bit in our assignments, okay? We're going to use it all the way along, but just understanding the stages themselves is going to come up again in assignment 14, I think. So there are 5 main stages. Pre-writing, I often call this brainstorming because that's just how it works. This is the stage where you gather and you generate ideas as a subject. And the main goal in this stage is to get the ideas flowing and put them down on paper. Okay, mapping or brainstorming are 2 types of pre-writing activities. And the reason is sometimes when you're going to write something, if you just like pull up a page and expect to write beautiful, perfect sentences right from the start, that can be really intimidating, like so intimidating, people just get like scared and they don't do it. And it can be too much to do at once. Writing is one of the trickiest literacy tasks because you have to hold your ideas, you have to hold things like grammar and sentence structure, you have to think about your word choices, you have to think about punctuation and spelling. There's a lot of things to think about, and sometimes it can be really overwhelming. And so then what happens is people choose really simple sentences or really simple words because that's what they could kind of hold in their head as they're doing this, right? The word for that is working memory, right? We only have so much working memory, and pre-writing is one way to free up some space. We get some of the ideas down, and then we've got more room to be able to handle all the conventions, the spelling, the grammar, the word choice, all that kind of stuff, because we've already spent our time brainstorming the ideas. So that way it just kind of frees us up to be able to do more. Drafting. Usually I just kind of refer to this as doing the rough draft. In the second stage, you're going to begin the actual process of giving shape to the ideas by designing a rough outline and writing a first draft or a rough copy. The words and phrases from stage 1 are put into sentences at this point, but usually these are sentences that are going to need some refining. Okay, so I want to point out too, some people feel doing the outline would be part of planning rather than drafting. I kind of agree with them. I think it should be over here. It doesn't really functionally matter as long as you do think Outlining is just the idea of putting your ideas in the order that you want to talk about them. So if I was brainstorming, I may have ideas all over this page, but once I go to outline, I'm going to number them or cut them up and put them in order, or in some way make it clear what I want to come first. Because again, it just frees up my working memory to be able to write down my ideas. Okay, we are kind of running out of time. Let me think. You know what? Tomorrow we will work on putting this back in, simplifying it, and so that we kind of understand it a little bit better. Anytime we can put things into our own words, it helps us to understand it better. It's just the way that works. And we'll start working on assignment 12. So I'm sorry we didn't get any farther than that today, but there are other people coming on soon, so we've got to finish up. Thank you so much for showing up, and I will see you guys tomorrow for class 9.